So I'm a senior at UT Dallas. I'm a neuroscience major. I'm pre-med, DOI. I'm a peer-led team learning leader for organic chemistry. Peer-led team learning is a program at UT Dallas where students meet once a week for an hour and 20 minutes and discuss topics from their class. It's led by someone who got an A- or higher in that class. So I do that for organic chemistry. I've been doing that since I was a sophomore. I'm a first-year leader, so I teach a freshman seminar class at UT Dallas. So basically our freshmen, they come in, they're scared of college, and it's a requirement that they all have to take a seminar class, so I teach one of those seminar classes. I host a radio show at Radio UTD. It's a sports talk show every Friday from 10 to 12. I like doing improv. I am in the improv class at UT Dallas, and I do stand-up on the side at different open mics. And I love my dog. I don't have a picture of him up there. I don't know why I put him there if I didn't have a picture. It's kind of dumb. That's our mascot, T-Mock. He's terrifying. He's literally the scariest mascot. When he walks around the corner, I run. So it's kind of how I run things. All right, so I'm pre-med. You guys are pre-med, or at least you're interested in being a pre-med. What do you gotta know? All right, there's a lot of bullshit everywhere. So I just want to give you guys some of the basics of what it's like to apply in this cycle and how difficult it can be. All right, now I'm not trying to scare you. These are just things I thought everyone should keep in mind. Because when you say, oh, when I'm going to apply to medical school, I'm going to apply it everywhere. And then you start seeing the costs. So there's 3 different application platforms that you can utilize. There's AMCAS, TMDSAS, and AACOMAS. I don't know how to say that without sounding weird. AMCAS is the national one, so most out-of-state schools will utilize that one. So it's $169 for the first application that you'll do, and it's $39 per school after that. So you'll fill out a general application that the schools will get, and then they'll send you secondaries on top of that. So this isn't even just the end of it. So say I want to apply to University of Oklahoma Medical School, then I'll get a secondary from there, and that secondary will also cost $100. So if that's the only school I'm applying to, I'm out $269. But then if I want to add more school stuff, then it's $39 per school. It's a costly process. Now, there are some schools that offer financial aid or application waivers if you fall under certain thresholds. So definitely look into that when you're applying. TMDSAS is the in-state one. I think there are 12 schools on this now. They added Dell, TCU, and then Sam Houston State. Those are 3 new schools that have popped up in the past year. And then they're about to add University of Houston's own medical school. So TMDSAS is going to be full of schools, which is great because it's $185 flat. All the schools get your primary application. But then each school can send a secondary, and those secondaries tend to range from $60 to $75. Then AACOMAS is the osteopathic application, and that's only for out-of-state osteopathic schools, and there's 1 in-state. So there's 3 in-state osteopathic schools, TCOM, Sam Houston State, and Incarnate Ward. TCOM and Sam Houston State are on TMDSAS, and Incarnate Ward is on AACOMAS. And that's the most expensive application, $195 for $145 per school after that. Now there's 3 essays on the primary application. There's a personal statement, personal characteristics, and the optional essay. It's not really optional, you should do it. Personal statement is just, hey, why do you want to be a doctor? Personal characteristics is describe personal characteristics that would add to educational experience of others, and an optional essay can be about anything you want. These things are pretty important. Does anyone here? Yeah, what's up?
Have you used the same essay for all these applications?
Yeah. So AACOMAS, TMDSAS, and AMCAS all have the same essays. Just a little bit different, so you have to reformat a little bit, but you can use the same ones. And it may sound like, oh my god, holy shit. If I get 20 secondaries from all these schools, right? The secondary applications, by the way, are school-specific applications. So they'll ask you questions regarding how do you fit with the school's mission? How do you fit with the school's goals for their students? But after you write 2 or 3 secondaries, all the essays they all have the same prompt, so you can reformat it. So it's not like you're writing that many essays. But the financial aspect of it, I think, is a really important consideration to have. Yeah?
Is there a word count for how many words you have to write per essay?
Yeah, for sure. For I think personal statement, I thought it was up there, but it's not. But it should be 5,000 characters, and then 2,500 characters, and then 2,500 characters. So you have a lot of space to work with, but on secondaries, that's where they'll get you. Where the secondaries will be like 500 characters, tell me everything about your life, go. And you'll be like, what? That's like 2 tweets. So I don't know how to do that. Does anyone know the difference between osteopathic and allopathic? Has anyone heard of those words? That's okay. Okay, so allopathic is your traditional MD, right? Medical degree doctor. Yay. Osteopathic is DO. Still a doctor. Yay. The only difference between the two is their ideologies, which sounds like a lot. Osteopathic ideology is holistic care, meaning that the body is self-healing. So the type of medicine that osteopaths practice is they train their patients to live their lives differently while also prescribing medication. MDs mainly focus on symptomatic relief, so, oh, you have a cough, let's get rid of that cough. But the underlying illness, hopefully it goes away at some point, you know? And of course, antibiotics and all these things are important too, but osteopaths are mainly about preventative medicine and primary care. And so most osteopathic schools do that. There's a whole thing about them, but they're both equally valid and they're both important to look at. Osteopathic schools are easier to get into because the demand or the desire from a lot of pre-meds to apply to them is low because some asshole told them it wasn't good enough. But I can assure you that osteopaths are perfectly credible and you will be a doctor.
We have a question.
Yes.
So I heard also when it comes to like osteopath schools, some people say they're easier to get into, but there's also not as many versus the other ones.
Yes.
So I hear that it's kind of close to the same.
Yeah, you're 100% right. The thing is that the average MCAT score to get into an osteopathic school is a lot lower than MD. So the average MD score I think is getting to about 509. Considering a lot of you guys are sophomores by credit or freshmen by credit, by the time you apply it might be 510. I don't know, they always seem to be scaling it towards a 510. And we'll talk about the MCAT in a second. With osteopathic schools, it can range from like 502 to 506. And like TCOM, which is Texas College of Osteopathic Medicine, is basically like applying to a medical school because their MCAT average is like 508, which is on par with all the state Texas schools. Sam Houston State just is opening up their first class in August. So there's really no numbers on what they like or how difficult it is to get in there. That guy just ate shit on the floor. Okay, anyways. What matters for medical school applications? Alright. So, yay, memes. Okay, GPA, MCAT, leadership, shadowing, volunteering, research, extracurriculars. All right, it varies from school to school. That's the biggest thing, is that like schools like Dell Medical School, which is in Austin, they care about someone who's going to change healthcare, someone who's going to go in and disrupt the healthcare system, which is great. Somewhere like Southwestern, it's like, hey, do you like research? We like research. We should get together. That's how Southwestern works. So a lot of these schools, it's just dependent on what they value most. Rio Grande Valley, for example, really values preventative and primary care. Sam Houston State, I just interviewed there, and like what they said is they really want primary care providers. They really want family physicians, family med, pediatricians, all those. They don't really want you to go into surgery as much, unless it's like general surgery. Because in East Texas, where Huntsville is, there's the ratio from patient to doctor is 2,000 to 1. So for every 2,000 people, there's one doctor. So they need more primary care providers there. So of course, this all varies from school to school. So don't like hold yourself to it, it changes. Next thing. All right, so studying tips for classes in general, okay? Because I know that as pre-meds, we can get really like caught up in our own minds, and it's very difficult to study sometimes. So Khan Academy is a godsend. If you didn't already know about it, you're probably living under a rock. Time management. Okay, I keep like a really strict Google Calendar, and like I'm not like a success story of any kind. I just really like to know what I'm doing and when I'm doing it. And it's really important that you hold yourself to that level of accountability as well. Hold yourself to that standard that, hey, you are important. Your time is important. So when people are asking you to do things, just make sure that you can do it if you can fit it. I always make sure I have time to just chill, just do absolutely nothing, and just relax. Like I always make sure I have that time. It's super duper important. But when I have stuff to do, I make sure I sit down and I do it. And I wish I'd done that the first few years of college, for sure. When studying, avoid listening to music with words or listen to the same song for the entire duration of your study session. Fun story, for Biochem 1, we had our exam and I was studying the night before, great time management. And I needed to focus, and so I listened to one song for 12 hours straight, and it was I'm in Love with the Stripper by T-Pain. And it was awful because during the exam I was singing, I'm in love with the stripper. It was great. Anyways, so when you don't feel like studying, take a few minutes, take a walk, call your mom, do whatever. Just get your mind off of it, because when you feel like checked out, you're probably not going to get anything done in that moment. Hold yourself accountable, and starting is the hardest part. For studying, you'll be sitting there, you're like, okay, at 4:30, I'm going to start studying for my Gen Chem exam. 4:30, okay? 4:31 hits, all right, it's past. 4:45, I am studying. You just, sit around. 4:46 hits, okay, 5 p.m., I'm studying. And then it's all of a sudden it's 3 a.m. and you binge watched 4 Netflix series. It's not good. Starting is always the hardest part, yeah.
So, what if you get, seriously motivated and, you do, a bunch of work the first day, but then the second day, you're just, dead, and then, after that, you just don't want to keep on doing it?
Yeah, burnout. I got you, burnout. It's the worst. That happens, but then you have to bring yourself back to the big picture, right? Why am I doing what I'm doing?
How do you stay consistent?
That's it, is that you have to keep yourself motivated by keeping the big picture in mind. What's the big picture for you? You want to be a doctor, okay, right? We have a lot of different things that we do. One of the worst things we do is we make goals without plans, right? A goal is something that's okay, at the end of this semester, I want an A in organic chemistry, it will happen, right? But that's just a goal. If it doesn't happen, then you're like, okay, well, my goal didn't happen, okay, what do you do? But if you make plans to have the goals, then you'll stay motivated, I guarantee it. When you have a calendar driving you, deciding what you're gonna do, there's no space for your mind to wander. If you allocate yourself the appropriate amount of time to do nothing, when you are doing something, you will do that thing. You are much more productive and powerful than you think you are. Seriously, the self-doubt, the self-deprecation that we have as pre-meds is cancerous, ironically. It's cancerous. It's what keeps us from getting to where we want to go. So if we make plans through having a calendar, through having a schedule, keeping detailed ideas as to what my day is going to look like tomorrow, then we will get through things. We will get things done, and the goals will happen. So this is just studying tips for classes in general. I want to talk about the MCAT really quick, because that's a scary thing. All right, so the MCAT is 4 sections. The first section is Chem Phys, so guess what's in it. CARS, which is reading comprehension. Biochem, shocker, and Psych and Sociology. And it's a lot. It's 7 hours. It's debilitating to study for. It's the thing that a lot of people, it weeds out the most amount of people. This one girl I've known since we were 2, she's been wanting to be a doctor her entire life. We were studying for the MCAT, and she decided, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. But that was just a mindset thing too. She didn't really have the right people around her that were supporting her, and that's why, if you want to be a doctor, you will be a doctor, and I think that she realized that it wasn't really what she wanted. But there is a lot of free resources available for MCAT prep. So there's jackweston.com. Fun fact, if you are a freshman or a sophomore and you're not planning on studying for your MCAT, you can start doing Jack Weston today. They do a CARS passage of the day. And by the way, CARS is the hardest section to improve on. If you're bad at biochem, guess what you need to do? Learn biochem. If you're bad at Chem Phys, guess what you need to do? Learn Chem Phys. If you're bad at CARS, how am I supposed to tell you to learn how to read? It's not that easy, right? So CARS is the hardest one to improve because it takes time. It takes a lot of time. So if you start now, it's 8 minutes a day. jackweston.com, literally they just have one CARS passage. You just do it once a day. Just make it part of your morning routine. It's 8 minutes, and I really wish someone had told me that when I was a freshman. It would have set me up for a much better MCAT score if I'd done. There are a lot of prep companies out there. Pick one. I did Princeton Review. I didn't think it was worth it. I think the books were way too long for stuff that I could just look up. a company that I think a lot of people that I talked to that did much better than I did on the MCAT, they did Exam Crackers, and it's with a K. I didn't put that up there, but it's Exam Crackers with a K. All their books are this thick. Super thin, really quick, easy reads, content. You know, you may be thinking, well, what if I don't get all the content that I need? You will. I promise you, you will, because you'll read it and you're like, oh, I want to know more about this. Guess what? I have the internet, Google, and you'll look it up. So you don't really need the big, gaudy textbooks because then you can't carry them anywhere. Then you're kind of stuck in like one location. And then also, like, our mind plays games on us. When you see a textbook this big, the chances that we're going to open that thing are like 0 to none, or less than 1. Anyways, Anki, A-N-K-I. So Anki is what medical students use to remember all that information. It's a lot of info, right? So Anki is by far the best way, and it's free. It's a flashcard service, and you don't have to make your own Anki decks. There are free decks online that people who got like 524s on the MCAT, which is really good. It's like 99th percentile. They made those decks, and they're just loaded with like just little questions. And basically, the way it works is they'll show you the card, and then you answer it in your mind, and then you click Show Answer. And once you click Show Answer, it'll show the answer. Now, say I didn't get this answer right. Then there's 3 options at the bottom of the screen: again, good, and easy. If it was really hard and I didn't know it, I'll click again, and then it'll give me the same flashcard within 1 minute. Then, if it was good the second time where I got it, but I still feel kind of iffy, you know what, maybe I wouldn't have gotten it if I hadn't seen it a minute ago. Then you click good. And once you click good, then it's 10 minutes. So there's like a lot of studies on memory and how it works. Repetition is by far the best thing for any form of memory. So there's this thing called consolidation, where your brain creates a memory and stores it away, okay? Reconsolidation is when that memory is retrieved and then consolidated again. And there are a lot of studies showing that the neural networks that are happening in your brain when that happens get stronger. So long-term memory gets stronger with repetition. I know this seems like common sense, but if you wanted to know the neurological basis behind it, there you go. So our hippocampus and our amygdala work way better when we constantly reconsolidate. When we're constantly recalling and sending back information. And this is exactly how Anki works, and it's free, okay? So I highly recommend using it. It's like, yes, you'll sit for an hour just doing flashcards, but the amount you'll learn and retain from all that, it's amazing. You get so much smarter while you're studying for the MCAT too. So there's that. Remember, if you want to be a physician, you will be a physician. Not everybody has the same path to medicine. So my sister is an internal medicine doctor, and I could have just said internist. She's an internist, and in her medical school, she went straight from undergrad. So that's the minority of people that go straight from undergrad. Was 23 years old, or 22 years old when she started medical school. That's the minority. Some of her best friends were history majors in their undergrad. Spent 4 years doing whatever history majors do. And then we're like, you know what? I want to be a doctor. And then they came to a school like Richland, got all their prereqs out of the way, took the MCAT, applied, and got in. And they graduated medical school at 30, 31, 32. But they became doctors because they wanted to be a doctor. If you want to be a doctor, you will be a doctor. Okay? And it's not that, oh, the first time you apply, say you don't get in. Okay, do it again. Apply again. But in that 1 year, do something. Make it great. Make it count. Make it valuable. And you will be a doctor. There's no one stopping you from being a doctor except you. It'll take time. Sure, I know this one girl, she applied to medical school 4 times before getting in. So she got in on the fifth attempt. But guess what? At the end of the day, patient's going to call her a doctor. Patient does not care. Patient just wants to feel better. So she's going to be a doctor too. And you will. I promise you, you will. And I think that was it. Do you have any questions? Any questions at all? Yes?
As far as the MCAT, you can only take it a certain amount of times, correct?
You can take it 7 times in a lifetime, 3 times in a year. Yeah.
Does reapplying to the same medical school decrease your chances or increase them?
No, if anything, it would increase them. But a lot of schools like Texas Tech, at like some seminar, they were talking about what they like in their reapplicants. Texas Tech would prefer that you do knew everything. So if they see like, hey, this person applied to us last year and they applied to us again this year, but all their answers are completely different, that 1 year, that one gap year that they had to take was full of meaningful experiences, that will ultimately help you. Because not only will they already have some idea of who you are, because they will have read your old personal statement, which I have no doubt will be amazing, and then they'll read your new personal statement, which will also be amazing, so they'll know more about you. So I think it's probably better for you, if anything. Anyone else? Any other questions? Yeah.
Going into like the healthcare field in general, like if you let's say like I'm becoming a PA, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like if I go into the healthcare, like a health career or like a field right now, like a nurse or something or a scribe, how beneficial is that really?
For PA school, they require scribing. There's like an 80-hour requirement, I think. Or no, it's way more than 80 hours. But there's a requirement for scribing for PA school. For med school, there isn't. But on a previous slide, I think I had shadowing and volunteering are important. Like, there's no denying it. In interviews, they'll ask you, like, hey, tell me about an experience you had with a doctor. It also gives you more, like, things to write about. What I realized during my application process this year is, like, I'm really happy I did a bunch of weird things because I had a lot to write about. Med schools don't just want people that, like, did bio. Like, they want people who have some sort of outside interest. So a guy I know, not that well I know of him, he's at Southwestern right now, super smart dude. He plays drum set, and he used to play drum set at UT Dallas's jazz band. But like, other than that, he was an EMT, and you know, he was a tutor for bio, and yeah, and he had great grades, and he got a good MCAT score, but like, the drum set thing really set him apart, because like, how many people are you gonna meet that are like, yeah, I play drum set on the side. So, expanding your interests are really important, but yeah, volunteering, shadowing, scribing, these things are, you just can't avoid them, they're really important. Yeah.
So, I guess I've heard, or I've seen that chemistry is, so you said the MCAT is heavy on like reading comprehension. So what would you say that's the largest portion of the MCAT? Or what would you say is the largest portion?
So each portion is equally weighted. So each Chem Phys is 132 points total. You can get, I think the lowest you can get is 118. So 118 to 132 is the range, and that's the same for all of them. And then it's 472 to 528, and it's graded on a normal distribution in the sense that 500 is the average score. So if you get 500, that means if all the people that took the MCAT that day, you got 50, you're in the 50th percentile of that day. And so that's how that works. Now, everything's reading comprehension in the MCAT. There are two types of questions. There's essay questions, and then there's discretes. So essay questions are exactly what they sound like. Here's a long passage, some experiment, and then here's 6 to 8 questions about that experiment. Discretes are just individual, standalone questions. And those are like, oh my god, when you see a discrete on your MCAT, you just get so excited, because those are the easiest ones to get right after you've studied for a while. Those are the easiest ones to get right because there's no trick. There's no like, oh my god, I forgot to read this one sentence in the passage, that kind of thing. So it's almost, other than discretes, it's all reading comprehension. Like, there was a law professor who had no like interest in biology, but he was a really good reader, and he made a bet with one of his doctor friends. He's like, you know that MCAT you always complain about? I bet I could kill it. And he just took it, and he scored in like the 98th percentile without studying at all, because he just knew exactly what information to extrapolate from the passage. Now, that guy's a genius. Like, I would not recommend doing that at all. Like, I'm a good reader. I read the newspaper every morning. No. Like, study for sure. But, I mean, and it was the older MCAT, so the newer MCAT's like a little bit more difficult, I think. But yeah, it's mostly reading comprehension. Yeah. So when you're studying for it, you need to get used to like reading long passages, keeping your attention span like on point the entire time. Another technique a lot of people use when they're studying for the MCAT is they mimic the time frame that the MCAT's run in. So you have 90 minutes for the first section, 95, and then 90, and then 90. So people will study for 90 minutes, give them a 10-minute break, 90 minutes again, or 95 minutes, and then a 30-minute lunch break, and then 90 minutes, 10 minutes, 90 minutes, and then that's all they would study for the day. And they would just do that every day. So when they took the MCAT, there's no such thing as fatigue. So there's like an absurd amount of information on the internet on the MCAT. Yeah, you have another question?
Yeah, I guess in that same vein. Would you say that there's like a particular major that increases your chances of acceptance into medical school?
That's a really good question. So yes and no, right? So here's the thing. If I'm a history major and I decide I want to be a doctor, my pre-med prerequisites become more important. So say I'm a history major, I cannot afford to get anything less than a 4.0 in all my science classes. I just can't. But if I'm a computer science major, that's a much more difficult major. Maybe I have more wiggle room, right? Maybe I can get away with a few B minuses, maybe like 1 C plus in one of my computer science courses, and maybe I can get a few B's in the pre-med courses, maybe, because it's such a hard major. Electrical engineering. If you're pre-med electrical engineering, like, schools will understand that, but why would you put yourself through that, right? So if you're a history major, an art major, something like that, you can definitely get into medical school. You just have to make sure you do very well in all your science courses. Now, for me, I'm a neuroscience major, and my science GPA is being padded by my neuroscience courses, because they count my neuroscience courses as bio courses. So when they calculated my science GPA, all my neuroscience courses counted for it. Now at UTD in particular, Introduction to Neuroscience is one of the hardest classes in neuroscience, but then after that, everything's like repetition, and it gets much easier. So that helped me out. So there's like, if you do psychology, for example, as your pre-med major, yeah, your GPA will be higher because psych classes tend to be easier in nature, but they'll care, like, what'd you get in organic chemistry 2? You know, why'd you get a C plus in that class, but you got an A in all your psych classes, right? They'll look at that. So GPA is extremely important. So honestly, I would recommend being a psych major. Like, just honestly, I would recommend being a psych major because those classes aren't as difficult, and that way you can allocate more of your time on your pre-med classes. That's what I've observed in my application at this point. That's what I've seen. That's I'm not telling you to do it. I love neuroscience and I'm glad I picked it. But in terms of GPA help, neuroanatomy was a hard class for me. Neuropharmacology was a hard class for me. Memorizing all those drug names was really difficult, and I could have done without those. So I don't know. Yeah. So.
How about what's your opinion on post-bac programs who already have their bachelor's and are deciding to go back?
Yeah, so usually post-bac programs are used to help someone's GPA. So say you're applying to medical school with not a super high GPA, then it might be smart in that gap year or that year after you graduate to take more classes to help bump it up. So for me in particular, my GPA is not phenomenal. It's okay. It's we'll see. I haven't gotten in anywhere yet, so we'll see if it's working or not. But if there's a question about GPAs, if I contact the medical schools I've applied to and they say, yeah, we liked you, but your GPA wasn't high enough, then I might go get a master's or do a post-bac, just so I can bump that GPA up, so I can show med schools hey, listen, my freshman year and sophomore year, I didn't have my stuff together, but now you see it, I'm doing really well in these master's classes, I'm doing really well in these post-bac classes. So that's the only reason I think you would want to take post-bac classes, is to boost up that GPA. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess the jury's kind of out on this. I'm hoping to transfer to UTD, but I've been told by a healthcare advisor here that taking because I was thinking of taking organic chemistry 1 and 2 here, but I've been told a couple different things. One is that it shouldn't matter where you take organic chemistry necessarily, if you take it at community college or if you take it at the university level.
Yeah, of course. So it's like really similar to the thing I was talking about with the history situation. So if you take OChem 1 and 2 here, it's the same class. Like organic chemistry doesn't change when you go to UTD. Like, oh, Comet organic chemistry is much different. No, that's not how it works, right? But when you do take those upper level bio classes, you gotta make them count. Because they'll know like, oh wait, was the university level too hard? You know, just keeping it absolutely real. Like if you get A's in organic chemistry here, and then you go to UT Dallas, and then you get a C+ in Biochem 1, that's not a good look. And then that might hurt you a little bit. So, in my opinion, I love UTD. I understand it's like absurdly expensive. So, I would recommend that you take, if you know, like for sure that I will, if I go to UTD and I take Biochem 1 and 2, genetics, all these higher upper level classes which are really hard, and I will do well, then yeah, by all means take OChem here. Personally, because like I am a PLTL leader for OChem, so I like work in the Student Success Center. The third bullet point, like it's a huge part of my life, is that it really, UTD is amazing for like helping students with hard classes. Like our peer tutoring center is amazing. Like people, basically the way it works is that people who get A's, A- or higher in the classes can apply and interview for jobs as peer tutors, and they can help people drop in tutoring. So I know people that go into the tutoring center and sit there for like 10 hours and just like do homework, and just if they ever have a question, they just raise their hand and someone will come and help them. So I don't know what resources are available here to help students with hard classes. I don't know about that, but I know at least at UTD like there's a lot of help. So it's so multifaceted. You have to do with what you feel comfortable doing. So if you feel that this is the place that you want to take OChem, like by all means, just make sure though that you do really well in those upper levels at UT. Any other questions? Yeah.
So you mentioned you're part of the PLTL thing, right?
Yes.
Do you think that like stuff like that and like peer tutoring and stuff, like being part of that, do you think that helps your application, or would it like not make a difference if somebody's not like a tutor and stuff?
I mean, it helps. It doesn't hurt anyone for not being a tutor, but it helps me like because I wrote about it in my essays. I talked about it in my interviews. Like it's a big part of what I do at UTD because it's something I value. Now I do know people that are OChem PLTL leaders that aren't that like involved with it. They do their job and then like they're out. They're like cool with just like they're like, taking a step back and just doing their job. For me, I love being integrated into that system, and so that's why it was important to me. So I wrote about it. So I do have experiences. I don't write about in my essays because like they're not like the most important things to me. So I am a freshman mentor, so you get assigned to a mentee every year. And yeah, I love my mentee and I like help him and it's great. But that's not something that's like changed my life in like a huge manner. You know what I'm saying? So it helps to be a PLTL leader for sure because it was important to me. So if my most important thing was improv, then I would have written about improvisation in my essays. And I did. And in some of my essays I did write about improvisation because I thought, this might be something they might like. So here. So yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
How long did you study for your MCAT? Like how much further out?
Well, I had to take it twice. So the first time didn't go well, second time was mediocre, but at that point I was like, I'm just gonna see what happens with this. So the first time I studied for like 3 months, but to be completely honest with you, it was right after sophomore year, didn't have my stuff together. It was 3 months, but maybe like 1 month of actual studying. A lot of like 8:30 a.m. I'm gonna start studying. And 8:31 hits, same thing, right? 9 a.m. and just pushing it back, being anxious, all those things. Again, the hardest part started. So I didn't realize that until after I taken my first MCAT, and it was just bad. And so the second MCAT was okay. The thing was, studying for it during school is awful. Like I highly recommend just like getting it done in the summer, or taking like a winter break and just studying for it, or if you want to, taking it during like a gap semester that you take off. Like give yourself time to dedicate to it, because a good MCAT score opens every door for you. Like really, it's the great equalizer that like nothing matters. Like, oh, you got a C in OChem? Well, you got a 520 on the MCAT. We don't care. It's fine. So the MCAT can be like a really big lifesaver for people. If you have a low GPA or something like that, like it can really help you. So 3 months to 6 months, like depending on like what time you have allotted. If you're having to study for it during the semester, give yourself 6 months, because like you can only get so much done while you're taking classes. If you're doing it over the summer, then like 3 months of like active studying should be good. Like 8 hours a day, 1 day off a week, like that kind of thing. Any other questions? Yeah.
So do you have any tips for interviews?
Yeah, for sure. There's like this one book that was written by like the Baylor's admissions staff. It's called The Medical School Interview. It's like a blue book. I found that really helpful. You have to be ready for like anything. It's weird. Like in my interview, they asked me what movie has affected my life the most, and in that moment, I was like, I've never watched a single movie. I just couldn't think of a movie in that moment. It was really difficult. Just being really kind, talking about empathy. You know, just being like a really empathetic person, being kind, showing like your true personality. I'm sure all of you guys are wonderful people, and just showing that. That's all it is. The interview is like, hey, we really like you as an applicant. We just want to make sure you're not a cardboard box. You know, so they want you to come in, show your personality, show them that like, hey, I'm really confident. I know I want to do this. Like, this is the thing that's most important to me right now, and I love your school. Like all that stuff. That's what you need to do. And then when you apply, like, know your essays. When you walk in the door, make sure you know all your essays. Because some interviews are closed, some of them are open. So open interviews are like the interviewer has read your file, has read your essays, knows who you are. So they'll ask questions about stuff. Closed interviews, which are much more common and better for you, closed because they take away bias. Closed interviews are where the interviewers don't even know who you are, they don't know what you look like, they just know your name. So when you walk in the door, that's the first time they've ever heard anything about you. And so just knowing like what experience to pull from, being ready for basic interview questions. Like I wasn't ready for the question. The very first question I got was, so tell me about yourself. And I just looked at the interviewer and I was like, my name's Agam. Hi. It was just so awkward because I wasn't ready for like that type of question. But that's a really common question that they ask. So another tip for interviews, when you walk in the door, just assume that the interview's already started. Like when you walk into the building, a lot of med schools, their interviews are like whole day format in the sense that the morning you'll get there, they'll have some breakfast, and then like they'll have a presentation about the school. Because the schools aren't just interviewing you, they're also like being interviewed by you because they're trying to sell themselves to you. A lot of the schools are competing with each other to get their students. And so you have to just kind of keep that in mind that they're going to present their self to you the way they want to be seen, and then just assume that that entire time you're being interviewed because they're looking at you. They're looking at who's like looking like this, like in the lecture hall while they're talking about their school's research plans. They care about that, and then during the actual interview, that's of course really important. So I don't know. The interviews are so like weird and broad and stuff. That book though, I highly recommend it. It was really helpful. I read it the night before my interview, and I thought it was really calming, and it made me feel much more prepared. Any other questions? I love these questions. Please bring them up. Yeah.
Can you say again what you said something cracker? What was
Exam
it?
crackers.
Exam.
With a K. Like the cracker part is with a K. Exam crackers. Anyone else? Any other questions? Yeah.
This might sound like a weird question, but what about like age range for applying for medical school?
Mm-hmm.
Like say this is like you had a career, you're kind of going bad, and you decide that's what you want to do. Is there kind of like I don't know.
No,
as far as
there isn't.
applying, is there like a bias as far as that goes?
There is, because if you think about it, these schools are also investing their money in you, right? All their donor money, all their stuff like that, these spots are really important to them. You may be paying tuition to them, but they really care about like who's taking their spots. And older applicants tend to be more mature and more ready for the rigor that comes with med school. Because essentially, college, you're taking like 15 hours a week. I'm in class for maybe 8 of them because I skipped some of them. It's real chill, right? And then once you get to med school, it's like 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. we'll have class 5 days a week. And you have to be there, and you have to know everything before you walk in the door. Now, that sounds daunting, but a lot of the schools will give their resources to their students to do really well. So the schools are going to pick people they think will do best on board exams because that makes the school makes the school look good. And if the school looks good, then they can increase their tuition and make more money. That sounds real bad, but that's how it works. And they will admit older candidates because older candidates tend to do better because they're much more mature. They're much better. those. They're not scary at all. Anyways, so yeah, older candidates are perfectly fine, and a lot of schools like them, so don't worry about that. Yeah.
So kind of to like go like to the opposite side, what about like younger candidates?
Yeah.
Because you said like they like more mature people, but what about people who aren't as old? But I mean, I guess they're mature because they were in higher grades at a younger age. What about that?
It's all about performance. So when I like talked about like, you know, GPA is extremely important. So if you show like, hey, listen, I might be like 21 or 22 years old right now, but I did well in all these really hard classes. I've shown that I'm mature, and then here are my recommendation letters from 3 adults. You know, recommendation letters also play a pretty big role. And so you need to make a good impression on adults, and they'll write letters saying like, hey, this is the student that, you know, you always wanted in your class, that kind of stuff. Anyone else? Any other questions? Yeah.
What kind of volunteering would you recommend?
Hospital volunteering, any type of volunteering in a clinic.
So would you recommend just like volunteering in a medical setting,
Oh,
a clinical setting, or
Both.
just
You need to have like medical, clinical volunteering. It looks really good to have other stuff. So I know someone that works at like a battered women's shelter, and she like absolutely loves doing that because she's given back in a different way, and that was a really big like focal point for her essays. She didn't do it for the essays, but she, you know,
she did something?
she did it. Yeah. So yeah, I would recommend doing. You had a question, right?
Yes, for leadership,
Uh-huh.
is it only like for club folks, or like you can try out any other organizations like outside?
Outside of healthcare?
Yeah,
Outside
or
of school?
outside of school.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, leadership is like a really big tenet in like your medical school application process, because if you're a leader, you're more likely to like take control of situations. Like, you know, you don't want a surgeon to be like, triple bypass? Are you sure? Sure you want this surgery? Like, they don't want that. They don't want their surgeons to be like that. So leadership is really important. It can be from anywhere. I wouldn't really worry about like where you're getting it from. You had a question, then we'll. Do you have your hand up?
Yeah. So I just want to know more like about like what type of research or like where you would do that.
Oh, yeah. So I was in a research lab for 3 years at UT Dallas, and I did write about it in my optional essay, but it wasn't the most positive essay. So basically what happened was I was assigned to this this one project in the lab, and it was over one summer, and I was going there 35 hours a week. I was working on this project, and I was working on it with my lab coordinator, and then she quit halfway through the first semester of my sophomore year. So I'd been there for approximately 5 months, but I'd been working on this project really hard, and she was my co-author. And when she left, this new guy came in, and he was really nice to me, but he was like, hey, this project's gonna fall apart because she's not here. We're not gonna devote any more time to it. So they shut down this project I was working on. Then after that, they like put me on like 4 different projects, and there was like no end in sight of me ever getting a poster or publication. So I quit because I knew that like I needed to spend my time elsewhere. So where to get research lab experience? Like if you go to UT Dallas or any other school after attending Richland, like a lot of the Texas schools are huge into research. Like UTD especially, we're a tier 1 research university. We bring in like billions of dollars every year for our research in grants. And it's like a whole amazing thing. Just a tip on applying to research labs is when you email research lab professors, make sure each email is unique to the professors, because if you send the same generic sounding email, they won't even like read it, or they won't even like get back to you. Make sure that you've read some of the publications from that lab, and if it's a new lab that doesn't have any publications, learn about the projects, the ongoing projects they have. Every lab has a website now, so you could go to those websites. You email them, you say, hey, Dr. blah, 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 my name is blah, 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 I'm really interested in your lab. I love the work that you did on blah, 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 and I found this interesting because blah, 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 blah. I am a hardworking student with a strong attention to detail and a desire to learn more about research. I would love to be a research assistant for your lab. I feel like I'd be a great addition to the lab. Thank you for your time. My name is blah, 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 blah. All right? So you have to write these emails like that, and then research lab coordinators love those types of emails when people care. They love it when people care about the research, because it's like their extra children, extra child is their research lab. So when other people care about it, they love it. You have a question? No? So yeah, that's how you get into research labs. It can be anywhere. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So back to what I was initially thinking about
Yeah.
going to, but I didn't do well. Would it show up in my profile, and would that like sort of ruin my image for the other path? I don't know if you got what I meant.
Oh no, I did.
Yeah.
So it would show up, the MCAT, but only when you apply to medical school. So what's the other path? I'm sorry if you don't want to
I
share.
mean, I know. I thought like I haven't fully researched it, but for PA, I think you don't need.
No, you don't need the MCAT.
Yes. Okay.
So
GR.
They won't ever see your MCAT score.
Okay.
PA schools will not see your MCAT score. But I do want to tell you that the MCAT's like a $450 test. So if you wanted like, and then also MCAT, like, I don't know, and you would have to dedicate a lot of time to study for it. I think like if you started studying for the MCAT today, you looked into it, it's not a really like a test you can like half measure, like half foot in, half foot out. It's people who have both feet in get the hell out of here, you know? So it's like, it won't hurt you PA wise and med school wise. Say you decide to apply medical school and you did bad on the MCAT, you just have to retake it and do better. You had a question? Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to know like how many times can you actually take the MCAT?
7 times. So 7 times in a lifetime, 3 times in a year.
Yeah, but does that affect like you coming into the school?
Yeah. Yeah, if you take it more than 3 times and it's not getting better, like that's not like a great look. Again, there's like podiatry school. Have you guys heard about podiatry school? Has anyone heard about it? Podiatry school is like foot doctors, and since nobody applies to them, they're like easier to get into. And podiatrists, by the way, get paid like great money if you're interested in that. And they require the MCAT, but like their score requirements are a lot lower because again, the pool is a lot less. So yeah, if you take the MCAT like 3 times in 1 year and it's not going like great, then you know maybe that might hurt your chances.
Okay, what if you take it like you start now, but you're not ready to like transfer to the school? Like you just take it from trying to see how it is that?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. It's just I mean that it's just gonna show up. That's the thing. It's like they will know your every MCAT score you've taken. They will know because the AAMC writes it, and the AAMC is the group that does the the AMCAS application. The AMCAS application is done by the AAMC, and then TMDSAS requires you to disclose all your MCAT scores, and then they contact the AAMC to make sure that you aren't lying. And so, I don't know about, I think AA Comas is the same way. So like all the med schools will see all your MCAT attempts. If you take it once, you do badly, and you're like, you know what, it's okay, I didn't really want to be a doctor. And then like 5 years later, you're like, wait, I want to be a doctor, I just realized I want to be a doctor. That's okay, just retake it. And like, that's not a problem. Yeah.
So, like, I know, like, for, like, SAT and stuff, like, those scores can be used for, like, 4 years or whatever, but what about, like, MCAT?
Oh, I don't have that number off the top of my head. I think it's 5 years, where it's, like, applicable. I think it's 5 years. But that's, I don't know. Don't hold me to that. Yeah.
As far as medical schools, like, I know there are some that aren't in the continental U.S.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know of anybody who has, do you know of people personally who've gone that route and then, like, successfully built careers there within the continental U.S.? Like, would that
Yeah.
be recommended?
Yeah, I do know people that have done really well in that. Problem is with the Caribbean medical schools, which I think that's what you're assuming.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. The Caribbean medical schools are absurdly expensive. Like, absurdly expensive. So the debt was really high, and a lot of their curriculum is self-study, which is fine, but you would hope that your medical school, like, puts some sort of, like, you know, a little back massage from time to time, you know? But they don't get that there. And then on top of that, when you're transferring back from the Caribbean to the U.S., you have to do well on those board exams. And so there's a lot of odds that stack against people that are in the Caribbean. I do know like 3 people that are doctors today that are fine. They're just paying off a lot of debt. And so obviously the priority is let's get in Texas, because Texas is much cheaper. The most expensive school in Texas is Sam Houston State, because it's a new school and they don't have a fancy donor behind them, and their tuition is $55K a year. But everywhere else is way less. Like TCOM's $12K a year. I think Southwestern's like 15, 20K. Like it's, and that's, I know it's like a lot, but it's out of state, it's like 100K. It's brutal. But Caribbean's okay. It's just, you'd prefer to be in state because, or in state and in the country because of cost and the support system that you'll get while in the U.S. Who else had a question? You also had yeah.
So as far as you doing your volunteer work and your extracurricular activities, so I've read different things, like some people have, done their degrees, then they take their gap year, and they kind of use that to kind of do their MCAT prep and seek out some more volunteer opportunities. Does it look better to, I guess, kind of put those at the same, or do those at the same time as far as when it comes to applying to medical schools? Because don't they want you to see if you can manage your time accordingly? Or what would you?
I don't think that makes a huge difference. It's all about narrative.
Yeah.
So if your narrative is like, I did well in the MCAT, I have a good GPA, I did volunteering, and I played the guitar every time. That's a great narrative to have. I would kill to have that narrative. So you already have to do so much time management as a human being. Like, you don't need to impose more on yourself. You have class, but you also have like home stuff. You have people that like are depending on you. You have friends, you have family, you have dogs, fish, I don't care, whatever. You have stuff. And on top of that, you have class. And they know that's not easy. Life is difficult. So you do well in these circumstances, that's more than enough for them to see. So I do like the idea of, hey, let me just take a gap year before I apply, and in that year I'm gonna study for the MCAT, and I'm gonna do volunteering, shadowing, or whatever. I love that, it's a great idea. Another thing is take biochemistry before you take the MCAT. Like the first time I took the MCAT, I did take biochem. I hadn't taken biochem, so I self-studied biochem. And then I took the class. I did really well in the class because I learned all of it over the summer. But I would really recommend taking biochemistry before taking the MCAT, because it is a big part of it. And if you can take A and P, anatomy and physiology, before taking the MCAT, like, you'll kill the MCAT if you take A and P beforehand. Like, I haven't taken A and P, but my roommate is currently taking A and P, and he's a junior, so he took his MCAT in August. He did pretty well, but he's taking it again, and it's so much easier now he's taking A and P, because a lot of it is like on the MCAT. Yeah.
Okay, so kind of the same question. Esther's, I have 4 kids. I don't know how many parents are in this room, but I want to go to medical school. I have 4 children. So, like, I know that the medical school interview, they take a holistic approach, but as far as volunteering and stuff, I know that's like school is not. I'm not that concerned about grades or anything. I intend to get good grades, but as far as volunteer work, shadowing, I know Presbyterian in Dallas, they want you to commit, like they want you to make a big time commitment for their shadowing program. So as far as stuff like that, like if you are a parent, you have those responsibilities outside of just the school part. Do you know if medicals, like, do you know any people who have like children, dependents and stuff who maybe omitted those things?
Yeah.
And still got in.
I don't know if they've omitted. I do know. I'll get your contact info. Actually, I'm gonna give you guys my email address, and then you email me, and I'll send you this article that was written by my friend whose mom just graduated her residency, and so yes, it can be done. Something to keep in mind is that big hospitals tend to be like really mean about like commitment. Cold calling physicians is probably a better way to go, because then like you work at your own time. Like they'll be way more understanding if they're not like bound to a hospital shift.
Okay,
So,
physicians outside of hospitals.
Yeah, like they run their own clinic, or like private ERs, private emergency rooms that are open 24/7. Those are like, those are all these different places you can look into, because hospitals, like, yeah, volunteers are allowed to come from 9 to 5 p.m. You're allowed to shadow from 10 to 12 p.m. Like, okay, that's not helping anybody. So emergency rooms that are open 24/7, private emergency rooms, you call them, they'll look it up. If you do cold calling physicians, they're much more understanding if you have to cancel it last minute. Like, I've had to, because an emergency happened and I couldn't go. They were way nicer about it. So that might be something you might want to look into. But as far as like having kids and doing this thing, it can be done, and you can do it for sure. Yeah.
So for research, how long do you have to go on to research? Is there like a period?
No.
Or
Just accomplish what you want to get out of it. What I recommend is, if you ever join a research lab, is be upfront after you've gotten in, not in the interview. Don't be upfront in the interview. Be all nice and courteous in the interview. But be upfront that, hey, my goal out of this is to get a publication or a poster. What do I need to do that? Here's my time frame. Here are the things I'm doing. And then they will be like, great, you want a poster? You have to work 12 hours a week. And you say, great, I can't do that, so I'm going to quit this lab. That's all you do. It's a really short conversation to have. So make sure you have something to show for it. For me personally, the only thing I had to show for my research lab experience was this bad thing happened, and I realized I was wasting my time, and then I had to leave because I didn't want to waste my time anymore, which is really sad because I was really interested in the work that I was doing. But yeah, whatever.
So if I went to, I'm thinking of going to UT. So if I graduated from UT, but I'm still like working in the lab, can I still do that, or would it have to be?
If you can.
I started it as a student, but then like I already graduated, but I'm not done my lab work for like research.
It depends on what your timeline is, because if you're starting medical school that August after you graduate from UTD, then you have to quit the lab. Like, there's no way that you can stay unless it's like you're already working at like a lab at Southwestern, and then you're going to Southwestern. Then you could definitely stay on. But if you're going to UTRGV medical school in the Rio Grande Valley, which is like South Texas, and then your lab is at UT Dallas, like it's probably not gonna work out. But if you're not going to medical school and you're part of that lab, you can most certainly still work at the lab. That's not gonna. UTD loves research more than anything, so like they will keep you in the lab for sure. That's not a problem. And you could get you could be a master's student in the lab and probably get way more done. You would probably get you would be put at the front of the line for every project. Yeah.
When do you recommend like the earliest to take the MCAT?
After you take biochemistry. That's the earliest. The latest I would recommend is after you take an A&P 1. I don't know what you guys' timelines are. I don't know what rush you're in. I don't know like what you guys want. But maybe waiting until after you graduate undergrad and then taking the MCAT, taking that year, that gap year before applying, like what you said. That might be really smart because then you will have taken really hard classes. Now you may be looking at like really hard classes and being like, I'm struggling in general chemistry 1 right now. How am I going to do well in anatomy and physiology or genetics? How am I going to do well in those classes? Like you will get smarter as undergrad goes on. So I don't know. For me, when I finally realized how to study for myself and like how to retain information at a high rate, that was while I was studying for the MCAT, the second time. That's when like something clicked where things started to make way more sense. And that was a little late for me. So I don't know. I think the earliest would be right after taking Biochem 1 or right after taking A&P. So, yeah. Any other questions? Yeah? You got one? Yeah, no, it's fine. Go for it. We can do the last one. And then,
As far as like, so for example, like anatomy and phys,
yeah.
you've already taken it before, but there's been such a, or maybe like chemistry or biology, there's been such a large gap in between the time that you took it from your first career to now. You taking those classes over and taking them at a community college versus your university before, is that an issue? I mean, if
I
I
don't
make
know.
a better grade versus what it was before.
Yeah. I honestly, I don't know. I'm sorry. I would tell you an answer if I knew it. But I don't know an answer to that. Okay, if you have any more questions, is this a whiteboard or like what's the deal here? This is not a whiteboard. It feels like a whiteboard. Yeah.
You got a marker out
Yeah.
there.
There's a marker and erasers. I would assume that's whiteboard. My email address is super easy. Ugum@utdallas.edu. Adam with a G. Super easy. Ugum. So I always look at my email. I look at it once every 10 minutes. So if you send me an email, I'll try to get back to you as soon as I possibly can. Just tell me like how I know you. Just be like, hey, I was at the thing at Richland, and then like ask me that question. And then if I don't know the answer, I will certainly find a way to like get you to the right answer. I'll send a link or something. Okay? I love meeting new people. So if you have any questions, please feel free to email me, and I'll try to be as responsive as I can. Yay! Okay.